We're about 2 years away from 2027, the end of a 400-year cycle that began in 1615. This genetic mutation has been slowly cooking in our DNA. We're about to step into another one of these quantum leaps. That's why this time window is so pivotal. The message is self-empowerment, your internal spiritual compass that is felt in the body. It's not ideological. It's not coming from the rules of Krishna and whatever. That's going to be the winning strategy once 2027 hits. What feels right? And how can I get closer and closer and closer and really anchor into that, fortify, root into that feeling of what is right? And how can I make this electromagnetic vessel the clearest vessel?
Hey guys, I'm Aubrey. On this show, we explore the intersection of mysticism, technology, art, and transpersonal experience. I'm an entrepreneur, author, and cosmic advisor, covering human consciousness and the larger forces shaping our collective destiny. Welcome to The Infinite Drop. You guys, Dylan Verinhorst is known as the human design maven. He is an absolute expert in this work of human design. He's been studying it, practicing it, teaching about it for 14 years, and he is the originator of the 5D body graph. I have been drawn to Dylan's work since it's probably been a couple of years now, and I first encountered him on David Palmer, the Leo King's High Vibe Network. They used to do a show together, and it was, in my opinion, by far the best show David's ever done with a guest. It was just, it was so incredible, just the insights that they were able to come up with together. It's things that I had not heard anywhere else out there. It was so original and unique. And I was really drawn to not only the wisdom, but the way that Dylan embodies that wisdom and the way he's able to share it. So when Dylan and I linked up a couple months ago, I realized that he has this super unique take on what's going on in the world right now. And I was really drawn in by how Dylan was relating human design to a technology and like a blueprint to understand our own personal technology within a collective consciousness. So, Dylan, welcome to the Infinite Drop.
Thank you. I'm dropping in. I can feel it.
Dylan, I'm going to start with just sort of baseline here. I wonder if you can just kind of go through some of the more surface level elements of what human design is. Maybe you can share what other foundational systems it might be built from, just a way for people to kind of get their head around if they're hearing human design and they're like, what is this?
Yes. So human design is the blueprint to your genetic code. So we get to look at this body graph that shows us what is the physical rendering of your genetics, like your active phenotype and genotype, because human design goes into the expressed personality traits, also the unconscious, the things that are deep within the wiring of your body. But you get to look at this chart and you have your blueprint. You have your blueprint to your soul. You have your owner's manual. You have this system that's not just here to classify you as something, but give you tools to navigate life as your most unique self. And a big piece of human design is tied into the I Ching. It's an ancient Chinese form of divination that goes through the different layers of progression in the natural cycles. And in human design, we use the I Ching as a way to show which activations are basically, what are we working through? What are we here to see and differentiate as in this life? And when we look at that perspective, we actually see that life wants us to get it right. And that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people share about human design, is that there's this background piece of a benevolent cosmos that wants to give you the opportunities to become your true self. And so human design is your map to that experience.
Wow. Yeah. In our reading, what I thought was so helpful was, yeah, not just kind of identifying, because you and I didn't know each other before. It's not like you are privy to like my life and what's going on in my personality. It's like we've interacted a couple of times. But what was so cool in the reading was that not only were there very specific things where I'm like, oh, yeah, that tracks to my personality or how I move about or the experiences I've had, but there was the other layer of like, hey, here's how you might approach things differently and get responses or reactions or situations in your life unfolding in a way that just feels like more supportive and easier and just more in sync with like what your heart really wants.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really cool. And during the reading I had shared that like a friend was giving me feedback, like, why do you always do this, XYZ? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, this is just how it feels in my body. And without me telling you that, you had walked through and you were like, oh, hey, your sacral isn't actually connected to your throat. And I'm like, you're like, that is open. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I will know what to do. And then I just sort of sit there and I'm kind of like, this is fine. And people are like, wait, you knew the answer. Why didn't you say something?
Right,
And
right.
so just becoming aware of that, and then you know you showed some alternate ways that I may be able to like access an answer or um, give myself time to arrive at the right place. And just having that thing like, oh, I don't just have to sit there and be like, I don't know why this happens. It's like having awareness and then going, oh, for me, XYZ, this is what I need.
The awareness lets us relax into just
Mhm,
witnessing how we operate, how we function,
mhm,
and not need it to be anything other than it is. And in that relaxation, we actually find more space to move into aligned situations, move through current situations in more aligned ergonomic ways that feel better to us.
mhm,
So it's like this very subtle perspective shift on who you are and how you're moving. And when that happens, it's not like there's a ton of strategy that you have to keep in mind to like keep doing human design. It's just that you have the freedom to your process now. And you also can then feel what is not a part of your process. And that's really helpful too.
For me, that's the most helpful thing. What is not part of my process? Something part of the human design system is the idea of this G center. And it's right in the center of the body graph. And when we're saying body graph, we're literally meaning like like an like an image or an outline drawing of like a human being. And so right in the middle, my G center happens to be undefined. So, you know, I can like float around and be wherever. And I'm like, yeah, cool, 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 until it's not. Or, and it just sort of is just cool to have that awareness of this so that I can be more intentional with the things I need to be more intentional with. And I loved what you said, like being able to, at least in my case, have the space to sort of like sit back and be present and then allow a knowing to come really strongly. And for this part of my life, I'm moving into my sacral, because before it was in my solar plexus. And now I've moved into my north node. And so that awareness is going to come into like a different part of my body and be more grounded in a different part of me. So it's like I'm learning this new system. And it brings me, so what was so interesting, we were talking about like how we wanted to, talk about AI and technology, and you were really up on like, hey, outside of AI, kind of the coolest technology is our human design blueprints, because that's our soul's unique software. And you were sharing how like this is a system that can provide clues for our own personal experience of being human as we happen to be evolving in like a very unique compressed area of time. So can you explain these concepts more and maybe what the year 2027 has to do with how we're evolving?
Yes, let's map this out. So we're in 2025 right now. We're about 2 years away from 2027. And 2027 is the end of a 400 roughly year cycle that began in 1615. So for the past 400 years, we've had a very particular focus on skills, community, the social and material bargain. So social contracts, big hierarchies of governance, ownership, all these things. So we've seen the results of that in the world: industrial revolution, globalization, global trade, global governance, like lots going on, organized religion, massive population expansion. That's what we've seen during the cross of planning, because there's been so many resources. There's been so much sharing in a way that wasn't the same as it has been. So at the same time, this 400-year window that we're closing out here has been it's the end of a much larger cycle that began roughly 26,000 years ago, in which this genetic mutation has been slowly cooking in our DNA, just like in previous epochs where we had a sudden, quantum leap in our either our form principle or what we were capable of doing. We went from agriculture to civilization, or we went from, so-called Neanderthal to Homo sapien, in theory. So we're about to step into, according to human design, another one of these quantum leaps, because for this larger 26,000 year cycle that we're closing out, we've been focused on evolving our mental capacity. It's been the era of the mind. And so everything that's terraformed the planet and guided culture and been an emphasis for us has been rooted in the cognitive architecture of this rational mind and the visual field and the compare and measure and have the best and get the best, and just kind of this hierarchical, linear, kind of Saturnian, patriarchal left brain way of navigating life. And that was what was on the menu. We were supposed to do that. But now we're reaching the end of that epoch of mental dominance, and we're moving into the era of the solar plexus, interestingly. But it's not the same solar plexus that we've known to be a center of desire. It's becoming a center of awareness. It's a deeper awareness. And what's interesting as we relate back to human design being rooted in the Ching, the Ching says that the cosmic consciousness is a feeling consciousness. It's not thinking, it's not rational, it's not comparing, it's not even logical, but it is a feeling-based consciousness that has its own innate order. And that's where our uniqueness comes from. We're given a blueprint by the universe, and we're here to manifest that and bring that to the world. So as we move into 2027, we're actually moving into an era in which we're getting back to operating primarily on the feeling consciousness that the cosmos operates on. So in the realm of the mind, there has been a lot of disconnection. When you have to compartmentalize things, when you have trauma, when you have just mental patterns or belief systems that don't gel, there's separation that occurs. And it has really been a time of reaffirming the ego and this illusion of separateness between beings. As we move into this solar plexus era, we're tapping into the feeling consciousness that pervades all things and the whole cosmos. And we're also realizing that we're not as separate as we have previously believed. So there's huge implications for this societally in what we look at as religion and belief, what we look at as technology. We're kind of seeing all of the lines blur as we realize that we're all different vessels of just pure consciousness expressing it in different ways. So why is everything getting all freaky? It's because these very, partitions that we've created that make up the world, all the different blocks of consciousness that we think are there, that we need to be there, all this separation that we've created out of the mental type of consciousness are starting to shudder and shake because their time is almost over.
Yeah.
And we can't even imagine what a world built on this more unified sense of connectivity is going to look like and feel like. And right now, the whole ego structure of the past 26,000 years is like, oh no, it's going to kill us because its time is ending. And that's definitely true.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you for this super clear cut explanation. We're still in the era of the mind for like a year and a half more. So, like, being able to hear it in the mind is so helpful because I'll speak for myself and I can speak for so many people that I interact with, whether it's clients, friends, family, people in the community. There is right now such a sense of overwhelm or at max capacity for I would at least 90, I'd say 95% of the people I interact with in any respect, and myself included at times, right? I almost get to this maximum point of what I feel I'm able to feel. I'm like, there are all
Yeah.
these like waves of feelings. And hearing you say this, it almost sounds like what's happening is that as the system is like changing, and it's not minor, it's mental, logical, Saturn, structure, XYZ, like computer almost. And you can see where we've built up over the last 26,000 years, and in particular, the last 400 years, we've been building the mind, getting further and further into this non-organic space, into one that's like very structured. You look at all the apartment buildings going up and you look at code and ones and zeros, and it's all very mental. And it's almost like as we're switching this system, and maybe you can speak to this, all this energy was here, but maybe we were filtering it through the mind, and now as that structure is falling, we're having to feel the actual, like, what we're in, and it's very wavy, and there's a lot. So it feels like it almost feels like, for me, like I have been in a wetsuit that maybe, it was like really thick, and I had a helmet on in the water, and I'm moving, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I know how to swim. I can do backflips. I'm like, this is great. And then pretty soon, like, the wetsuit's dissolving. Somebody takes my helmet off, and I'm like, oh shit, this water is cold. Fuck, there's a shark. Like, whoa, like, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy. Like, I'm naked in the water, and this feels, oh, I am the water. Whoa, like, I'm part of the water, because we have this idea that we're in the foreground of reality, and really there's just one plane of reality, and we're all in it. Like, I'm no more important, valuable at the front, behind this in front of me, or the screen and this microphone. Like, I am the microphone. Like, we are connected. And just I think we're having a visceral experience of what that actually, like, whatever is turning, or our level of evolution, like whatever is occurring in our cells and whatever is happening, we're now able to pick up more of those frequencies. And it's such a unique time right now. And it feels difficult for so many people, all of us, no matter how, like, maybe how much you may have known about this before it's coming, or you still have to live through the experience of it and get the body used to it.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, knowing these things, or like having some frame, again, the mental, it makes it easier, right? Because then when I'm feeling like, what, like in one day, I'll be like the best day ever, and then be like, what the fuck? And it's the worst day. And it's like, it's a lot. And just being able to kind of notice that, and then go, okay, breathe, come back in your body. Like, so kind of a diet, like a long-winded, I don't even know what I was saying, but like,
It's a great example. I
yeah.
really think that's an example of the wetsuit in the water, and just kind of the dissolving of the perception
Mhm.
of separateness, because that's
Mhm.
really what it is. And
Mhm.
the other two things that also feed into this are the fact that in this last little window, our completion score for developing our mind, you know, evolution, life, whatever you want to call it, the cosmos wants that to get to 100%. We don't want to get to the era of the solar plexus with some of the potential of the mind still untapped. So why are we seeing this huge intensification of mental structures like AI, quantum computing? Because we've got to finish the story, and the door is closing. And
Mhm.
same thing with all these governmental structures, and even the intensity that we're seeing globally right now. They all get the loudest right before their time is done. And that can sound poetic, but there's obviously really, like, very real systemic issues that arise from that. But it also helps explain, like, this is not something we're going to see for a long time. This is the final moments of turbulence before we hit the new altitude, basically.
Right.
And the other piece that comes and feeds into this is that, being that we're moving into the solar plexus, there's been this intensification of needing to clear the solar plexus. So we have so much more awareness on our diet, our gut health, but also working through a lot of ancestral lineage level trauma, just unresolved, stories of the mind, of the mental adventure. Like, your grandma's grandma never lived out her dreams, so you're still kind of being influenced by that in the decisions that you make, and even the genes that are being turned on and off in your body. That's all solar plexus stuff. So when we also, you know, purify all of the not self of the solar plexus out, we're getting more sensitive. We're feeling the actual mechanics of the universe more in our bodies. And that's how we're going to be able to navigate in the future. That's the whole point of human design.
Wow. Like, you don't know this, but so crazy, not crazy, just you are speaking truth. I started 3 weeks ago on a 4 month, really intensive journey with the Green Door Life, which is a company I recommend to anyone to check out. Like anyone can benefit, man, woman, anyone, any health level you're at, I can recommend it. And I'm working one-on-one with one of their coaches. She's actually been on the show here before. Her name is Shannon Morse, and she had an episode with Amy Kelly, who's the CEO of Miri AI. And Shannon at the Green Door Life is training Miri AI on just everything you can possibly imagine in the realm of nutrition and strength and like the body. And it's all an intuitive system. It's not so much like, oh, you weigh this, or, it's not like these more traditional ways of like measuring your health. It's really a way to intuitively feel and know the cycles of your body, because we were never taught that. And I just started the program 3 weeks ago, and I think I'm moving into my third or fourth week, and it's just my fourth week maybe. And it's just incredible. Like noticing what I'm putting into my gut and not being obsessive, not being like, you can't eat this or you can't eat this, but just being like, hey, do you know that this is a protein? Or like, hey, do you know that like this, like notice how you feel after you eat certain things. And it's absolutely, I can just say like within 3 weeks, the change in my body and how I feel and my emotions and like my sleep and how my days are going about. I'm like, this should be the most foundational thing you learn from the time you are born. And we're just so disconnected from the land and our intuitive understanding of like sleep cycles and the sun and food. And it's not anyone's fault per se, right? You can't just like point fingers. Again, we've been in this system for at least 400 years of moving away from that into the mind. So of course, those understandings and teachings and the wisdom of the elders is going to be lost as we go more and more and more into the mind. And what's just so beautiful is being, a part of this program. And I mean, I'm only 3 weeks in, and I sent a message today to my coach, just being like, oh my gosh, like I'm only 3 weeks in. I wonder how I'm going to feel in 4 months. Like this is insane, just the difference in 3 weeks. So it's, and I know there's a lot of other, I know many people are being called right now to look at some of these ancestral things that hold them back, right? They start to notice, wait, I always have this reaction, or these type of people are always in my life, or why does this keep happening? And people are digging into it, and they're really going after it like in a more intentional way, like not just saying, oh, I'll look into that later. It's like, hey, I'm going to actually go get a coach, or I'm going to go into therapy, or I'm going to try this unique somatic practice or plant medicine and have a guide to like really help me get to the somatic core in my body of what's going on. And there's people going off of antidepressants and anxiety medicines and getting their gut back in order and starting to feel feelings for the first time in many years. And it's all like happening so organically. It's like you can really feel that these timelines that are outlined in human design are happening at the same time that we're seeing the proof outside of us. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
And the thing about that is, with these background cycles that take, that last 400 years, I want people to think of it as like, let's say that in a comic book way, God is this anthropomorphized, male figure. He's taking one video game out and putting a new video game in. So there's like this whole different level, world, themes, tools for these cycles, and everybody's playing that game. Like no one's not playing that game. Yes, there are always outliers and anomalies, but we're about to have this whole other energy plugged into the world, which is all about focus on your individual spirit,
Yeah.
focus and feel empowered to empower yourself. That's actually the background frequency of this next era, which we're calling the era of the sleeping phoenix, but it's really where the phoenix wakes up. And it's also
Sorry, can I interrupt? I love that name, the era of the sleeping phoenix, and the one before was like the era of the era
planning.
of planning. I'm like, planning or sleeping phoenix? I'm like, sleeping phoenix sounds more fun. Like it kind of sounds cooler. So
Yeah, it's definitely more intense,
you're like cool or straight to hell.
maybe more like, we'll see, because that's the thing, like the mind can't see past its projected future of certainty, and that's kind of the exciting part, is like it is kind of like we've been in a virtual reality video game for these years, and the the point of the game has been like, okay, accumulate resources basically, and find the skills or the people that you need to do that. And now it becomes like we're getting off the ride, we're coming back out into the light of day, and now it's more like empower yourself
Yeah.
by connecting to your own felt sense of what that is. It's not an external standard anymore. It's not keep up with whoever. That's
Ooh.
it's exactly how you feel it in your solar plexus, which will have new capacities and burgeoning abilities and different layers of consciousness that it's plugging into or becoming aware of. And that's what these new beings that are coming through us after this 2027 point will be all about, is that they're no longer concerned with the individual experience. They're no longer concerned with an ego, an egoic self, a like personal agenda. It's actually that all of that self-interest genetic material, if you will, has been removed, and what's left is just a vessel for pure consciousness, but at a greater bandwidth than a mental human, because we're geared towards our mind. We have a little bit of this receptive technology in us, and we're opening up to that in a little way. These are beings that are fully on from birth. None of this like I, me, my stuff. No separateness. So the crazy thing about these new beings, these children that we call the raves, the rays of love, is that only in threes or more does like the personality activate. So you have one rave by itself, it seems dormant. It seems like, okay, this person needs a lot of support. They don't really have it in them to like even vie for their survival, like we would, like hunger, like circadian rhythms. But then you bring three or more of these raves together, and they form what's called a transauric entity. So three bodies that are acting as the hardware that create one unified entity, personality, that is like the consciousness. So it's like,
It sounds like the telepathy tapes with the nonverbal children who, if you guys haven't heard of the telepathy tapes, it was like the number one podcast for a while. It ousted everyone else on the list, and it's still up there right now. But the telepathy tapes are about these nonverbal children and people who researchers are finding communicate instantly, telepathically through time, space. They just know things, and they're extremely psychic. They have like they can remote view, like they can do everything you hear about in like superhuman movies. And if these parents hadn't reached out to these researchers, or these researchers and parents hadn't noticed these clues, they would have never started the studies, and you may have just thought that they were just a really like a child with really heavy special needs who's non-communicative, and maybe you would wonder what's going on in their inside world. And for a lot of these kids, it's like an inside world that's actually mind-blowing, and their ability to communicate and calculate and think about things and love is just like on a whole different level. So it almost sounds like kind of like that sort of idea.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's this phenomenon. It's the same place. Like I was lucky enough to go meet the telepathy tapes team like last week in Oregon, and like
Amazing.
see what they're creating in terms of communities for these people with autism, um, where they can receive, where they really can come together in the way that they're meant to, without all this systemic societal structure getting in between them and their experience of their consciousness the way that it's meant to be.
So are they the predecessors to the raves, or are they early raves?
They're the predecessors. They're setting up the field. They're setting up the framework, the grid that the raves will run on.
Mm, wow.
And there's a huge level of planetary service in that, to be willing to incarnate with somebody with limited mobility sometimes, or just functioning capacity, in order to open up this new plane of consciousness to create space for what's next, and something that's next that most people do not see coming at all.
Yeah.
But that's why this is such a, I think, such a big movement in the collective right now, because we're all starting to feel something in us
Yeah.
that correlates to this. And
Yeah.
we know that there's truth.
Hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, and when you just said that, like these people who come and like volunteer to be the pioneers to like lay the groundwork, I really feel that for, um, the majority of people on Earth right now. Like we came here in a very fucking intense time of rapid change that is just there's no one there is just no, I mean, I don't think there's anyone out there, anyone that I look up to, researchers, just general people who don't look at this time and go, there's just no other precedent for what's happening. And you had kind of spoken about the time spiral and of how time, starts as a tight coil and then spirals up and it gets wider and wider until it coils back. And I know there's a lot of pressure because the spiral gets smaller and smaller, and we're feeling that. And so everyone here, like, to be the people, the souls who said, you know what, we're going to come down and try to clear out as much of the past as we can to move through into this new place and just like do that quantum leap to the next level of whatever this can be. You know, the last 2 episodes ago with Will Hawks, he was talking. He's a Oscar-nominated filmmaker, and we talked about AI in Hollywood and just some of the other things happening in the world. And he had this great line. He was like, in the early 1900s, the top scientists in the entire world, like the top thinkers of the time, thought that the next major invention would be like an electric bicycle. Like that's what they thought was coming next. And he's like, no, it was cars and airplanes. He's like, they just had no, like, you don't have a frame of reference. So like even us talking, anyone, doesn't matter how smart someone is, like, there's no way for us to conceive until we are there or experiencing it, because like you said, the frames are falling and you don't know what you don't know. There's all this like black space or white space or whatever it is that it just hasn't shown itself, and the frames and the systems that we have become accustomed to processing things through, we just have blind spots. We don't have the availability of all the colors of the rainbow of what, we're having like this whole new spectrum open up to us. And when you and I spoke during my reading, which was so insightful, and everyone that's listening, like, definitely go to Human Design Maven, book a reading. You can obviously tell from just listening to Dylan talk, like he's on a whole other wavelength. Like he's coming through with stuff that's completely original. Dylan is all original thinking. And so when you and I talked, you had spoken about soul families and what they, like, you were talking about what they want for me. I'll talk about your soul family wants something for you that you perhaps are unaware of. And you were talking about the concept of being able to tap into whole cultures that exist elsewhere in time and space. And I loved this. And I'm reading, you said, from time to time, if we're lucky, we get to tap into these other cultures. And I know you've spoken about interdimensional communication. Is this what you were referring to? If so, yes, no. And then if so, how does it show up for you? Is there anything in human design that speaks to this? Like, I'm just curious about the interdimensional communication in these like other cultures.
Wow. I didn't expect this question. So, um, you know, we tend to be conditioned to believe the universe lacks order, generally speaking. But in my experience, we're surrounded and infused with like a cosmic order. It's a law. It's an algorithm, you could even say. It's an inherent ingrained pattern in all consciousness that's going to kind of contain all the patterns that could possibly be for a human being, for an invention, for a culture, for a society. And when we have our great thinkers and our change makers and our revolutionaries, it's like they're dipping into a layer of this cosmic field and kind of just sampling these designs that are already there. And so what do I think of when we're talking about culture? Culture is just a way of life that emphasizes what makes life good and protects those patterns in a certain way. And so some of us are here to bring back that kind of order of relating, of sharing, of even buying and selling, of speaking, of writing. We're bringing an inherent sense of a higher principle at work, not necessarily ideologically though. And that's what I love about the cultural piece, is like, we don't always have to be talking about how to live. We can just be imbuing what we do with how to live and letting that speak for itself, and pulling other people into that field of coherence, because we do have a high degree of chaos and kind of entropy occurring in the world right now. And like, how can we cultivate this sense of non-restrictive, but actually life-affirming order in our experience? And if you're lucky enough, what happens is we're a clear enough vessel, at least maybe for a moment or maybe for a lifetime, where this stuff gets to come through us and we get to contribute essentially what you could say is the love of the cosmos into some kind of form, a book, a brand, a podcast, and that's bringing more of this cosmic order to the planet, and it's nourishing. It's like nourishing everyone.
I loved when you used the word coherence because it's this idea of doing versus being, right? And we're moving from a state of this 400 years at least of like do. Like what you do is your value to your being. And like, do you bring coherence into a space? Like, are you coherent? And when you go in, are you adding to coherence or chaos? And if you go into a space and it's all chaos, like, can you maintain your coherence and then know to move away from it if there is not like, there's not a matching energy? Know that that's just not the right place for you to be at that time. And someone with a different level of coherence that's more closely matches that chaos can come in and help to level set that, being able to have a handle on your own presence and your own energy and be a additive or a positive factor in that place. It's the idea of co-regulating with a partner or with
Yeah.
family, when it's that same idea. And Dylan, I think about people like Elon Musk, or people just with these major ideas that are just changing the world on fronts that are just hard to imagine, whether it's space travel, autonomous transportation, humanoids, artificial intelligence. I mean, again, obviously it's a team of people. Tesla isn't just, or, it's not Elon sitting there at a computer all day doing this, but someone holding that ability to hold that much future forward thinking. Like he's clearly tapping into something, and the levels of audacity and the levels of computational power and the ability just to hold that much energy at once, that I kind of think of someone like that not as like, oh, he's perfect, he's a god, this or that, but it's just more like a prototype of, oh, there are people here on earth who are tapping into something that is very, very different, and it's bringing in, it's like a forcing function of change in the world. We are going through a difficult time. Things are going to change. They are changing. Some of these systems are done. David Palmer says a lot. The systems have already fallen, and people just don't know it yet, right? It's like in the fall of Rome. While Rome was falling, people weren't going, oh. I mean, they were saying they could see the decline, I'm sure, but it wasn't like, oh, it's over for us. They're like, oh, things are going bad, but I'm sure it'll get better. But like, Rome had already fallen, like, what, 100 years or more. I mean, I don't know history that well, but like many, many years before, it's like it was done, and people were living in like the after illusion, the hallucination of what had been. And so when I feel into this, it kind of ties into my next question. I'm thinking about it a little bit differently now, but like huge waves of the like general population that had no experience with even ideas of frequency or any
Telepathy.
connection. Yeah, nothing, like people that just had no access to it or had not been exposed yet are becoming aware of how tapped in they are. Like, oh, that's weird. I just did that and that. Like, people are starting to notice it and they're getting curious. And especially in the last 4 to 6 months, for me, like it feels like something turned on around January that sort of just it like went real fast all of a sudden. It was like there was a dormancy period, and then it was like a light went on. I was like, whoa, a ton of energy. And it was like, it felt like go time, as in terms of like, okay, you've got to really keep clear on what's happening. And I just feel like there's these super unpredictable, strong currents of energy that are just what it feels like is that it's being flowed into the planet. And there's people, you don't have to be Elon level. Like you could just be in your community, the one person that's like the harbinger of change, that's holding a frequency that's different and people are changing. But sometimes for me, it feels like the cells of my body, especially at night, I feel like they're reorganizing. I can feel all this, quite this strong movement. And it's like, the capacity of my awareness or the capacity in my heart is just it's like being expanded really quickly, like super quick. And on Instagram or like the spiritual community, you'll hear people say, oh, we're getting upgrades, right? And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you? Does that feel like an accurate statement? Like, is there anything in human design or the systems you know of that would speak to that? What do you think is happening?
Yeah, well, so it's all about the solar plexus. So how we're kind of, we're finishing the mind, and that's an intensification, and we're also about to begin this new era with the solar plexus. It's almost like, um, you know, we've been building a portal. We've been building an airport this whole time, and then 2027 comes and we pull all the scaffolding off and we can travel to new places because we've built this amazing structure. The whole time it was under construction, we didn't know or feel that it was going to make us be able to fly somewhere else, right? We just saw the lump of material that was changing. So that's kind of what it is. And the solar plexus is like getting ready to hold much more frequency than it ever has. Like you said earlier, we've been like focused up here in our myopic little linear time, like get the resources, like mentality. And that's kept us, yeah, a little bit cut off, but also safe from the immensity of like the cosmos and how it all comes together. Now, as we're all dropping more into our bodies and feeling everything more because the solar plexus has less residue from the past and it's opening up to these new dormant capacities, we're feeling types of energy move through our DNA that we've never felt. It's like new, like voltage of our divine electricity is actually breaking through the like mucus of the past, quite honestly. And it's like that momentum is outstripping the entropy. And so we're feeling our cells are like having parts of their instruction sets activated that they didn't, that have been dormant. And so there's probably so many unique physiological things going on with individual people across the world that like science could never even catch up with it, because everybody's evolving in their own way. And doing people's human design all the time, I really get to see how intricately unique every person is and how unique their mythology is, and how we're all kind of like really built out with so much more than we even usually tap into, let alone understand. Like there's so much richness in this divine technology that we mostly ignore because we've been trapped in this game of get the resources and be in the realm of the mind and worry about what other people are thinking about you, and make your way up the social pecking order and whatever, microcosm that you're a part of. And like a huge theme I keep seeing in readings lately is people that are looking for permission to disconnect from a community that energetically cannot hold them. They're seen as the scapegoat, as the shit starter, as, the whatever, the pariah. And it's like I'm talking to these people, I'm like, you're actually the one designed to bring coherence. You need to go someplace where people want to feel that gift from you, not are threatened by that because you actually threaten their order.
You talked about this in my reading with me, actually. I don't know if you remember this. You said that I was born on the cross of industry for the left angle. I contribute things to the world through industry, through my work, like what I produce, what I do, for the purpose of clearing karma
Yeah.
as an outward facing person to other people. And so I create things that heal people by bringing them closer to their inherent truth.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my, I'm just having so many, I have my whole life, right? So many experiences of like I just feel like I'm in a room or I'm just talking or communicating, and there'd be very strong reactions, and it's like not happening with other people. And I'm like, what is going on? Right. And there are people in my life who say, wow, like I have someone right now in my life who's very special to me. And, he said, you are just like the clearest mirror. He's like, we're not even like talking about anything deep. And he's like, I just see all of these things. And I'm like, whoa, like, tell me, what's that like? Like, tell me what's happening. So can you talk about this? Like, so there's people that are born on certain crosses towards a left or a right angle. And like, what are some other like roles people listening might feel like relate to them, or they could say, oh, wait, I self identify with that.
So the fifth line people are the shit stirrers. They're heretics by nature. So they can't help but speak on inconsistencies in integrity when they've been identified. It's their genetic imperative is to bring attention to that, at least, and in some cases also bring the solution. Not always, though. And they always want to bring the solution, and it's sometimes not their job. And so, yeah, there's them. So then there's also like the savants. That would be the line two, the people that just have this intrinsic relationship with something. It could be horticulture, it could be migratory birds, it could be automations on N8N, whatever. There's like this inherent like giftedness around something. And so these people are, really the creators. They have this depth, and it's not an externalizing force quite in itself. It's just here to do its thing the way that feels best to it. And then the product is usually something so magnificent that it garners attention and projection and it gets called out into the world. So,
Is that why, like, maybe that's so I really love creating things and then setting them off. And then usually I'm kind of done with them. Like, I'll
yeah,
start a blog, start a company, write a book, do a thing. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then people are like, whatever happened with that? I'm like, oh, I'm done with it. It's like, I do it because it's just fun for me. It feels good for me. And I've created many things, and like maybe 10 people see it, and I'll put literally thousands of hours into something. And then I'm like, damn, I spent a lot of time on that and like never actually launched it. Like, why did I do that? But it was so fun for me, and I can't even help myself. It's like, I just love having nothing and then ideas coming and like building and building and building, and then just seeing what it could be, and then like feeling it, and then like my attention goes to the next.
right. Because that's just embodied creation. It's not get the resources motivated creation, which
Mm-mm.
is another layer of separation between us and our natural energy. Like all of you out there that are generators or manifesting generators, this same idea of cosmic order, this like universal unified field that has all potentials within it in a very beautiful way, the sacral center of every generator is tapped into that. And so when your gut says yes to something in life, somebody, an opportunity, a creative pursuit, whatever, business, it's because that universal field is saying, yes, this is part of my divine plan. This is part of what nature wants. This is part of like true creation, not just creation for a means to an end. And that's where the world frequency is really meant to change in this self-empowered era, is that all these 70% of the population that are generators and manifesting generators begin to move in ways that harmonize with their sacral, which harmonizes those beings, those people with the collective field, which harmonizes the planet's frequency with the cosmic frequency. And it'll be so hard to ignore when we're not moving that way, that it's going to create this cascade effect of change across the planet. So also that's just added like motivation for all of you generators out there. Like it's not always to get something out of it, and always needing to get something out of it other than the satisfaction is actually delaying the best things, you know?
Yeah. It's it's such a construct change, just like going from rowing a boat to like riding a horse. It's just so different, and there's not like a through line that you can really find between those two things. The through line would be breathing, which is
Mhm.
what this that's how we get through this, right? Is staying present in our bodies and breathing. Like I know I'm rowing a boat, I know I'm going to be breathing. Riding a horse, I'm going to breathe, and that is what feels like it's about it. And then the
Okay,
rest,
yeah, that's all you have.
that's all you have. And so I think it's great that there's so many teachers and people, just regular people too, and identify as a teacher. You can just be in your day-to-day life that you're helpful with the people around you and helping to remind people to like get back in their body. I mean, a lot of what I do with my clients right now, whether they're, monthly clients or they just see me, every once in a while, a lot of what I'm doing right now is just reminding them of like, hey, there's all what's going to happen. What about my business, my marriage, and it's like getting all of the kind of nervous energy sort of like calm down a bit during our sessions and pulling them back into themselves and reminding them of what I remind myself every day, which is like what is happening in my life is happening on a global scale, on a cosmic scale. It's so big, and I can affect how I feel within the moment to some degree. I can like help stabilize that, but I don't really have a lot to say about what's happening right now. Like the world is changing, the economy is changing, the geopolitical climate is changing, the way humans interact is changing. Our brains are being really molded and fucked with and rewired with social media and screens, and there's just a lot of upheaval in the world. There's a lot of, things that are not coherent, toxins and pollution just being really forced up to the surface to be dealt with. And we haven't seen the end of it. We're moving towards a crescendo point, and let's hope that the crescendo point can hit and sort of like a wave crash down and just come in. Let's hope it's not this big X, this big X moment that shocks the shit out of everyone. Let's hope that we can move with a little more grace with the energy, and that more and more people are able to step into levels of coherence and like bring that to the masses. Let's hope we're on a countdown. We can feel it. That's no joke. That's not spiritual over lingo. We can feel it. If you'd have to be a fool not to feel it. I shouldn't say that, but kind of. I mean, you'd have to really have your eyes closed to not feel something's very, very off. And I think it's just really great that great is a weird word there, but like it feels like really it feels hopeful, and it makes me feel it makes me feel hopeful and more settled in what's happening, to see so many people stepping up as leaders or teachers, or like I said, just in the community, like being that helping to set that frequency and showing other people like, hey, we can pull our energy back in from like the internet and screens and everything, like pull our energy back into ourselves and focus on our, like you talked about, getting our gut health right, getting our connection with nature and the physical world like back intact, like reducing screen time. Like everybody like doing their part is part of this symphony of energy that at this point is very activated. It's very, very activated. And like, how are you contributing? Not only like, if you can't think of it from like, I want to help the whole world, like, just think about it for yourself. Like, it would feel a lot better to be a little more calm in your little boat in a wild ocean, right? And then if you can help the people in the boats next to you, great, right? Then you have some friends around you. Like, I can get on board for that. So,
Yeah, as you're saying all this, I was seeing this dichotomy of like you can either be a pillar as this new tide of energetics sweeps across the planet. You can have prepared the vessel for yourself to stand tall and conduct the energy that's flowing through in a cohesive, coherent, creative, calm way, and literally being somebody that just by being is holding space for people, not in any involved interpersonal way necessarily, but just by being this energy. Or you'll probably be made to bow to the changes, and you'll go down, and you'll have to find a way to work your way back up. But that's why this time window is so pivotal, I think, because it's really, the message is focus on yourself because that's going to be the winning strategy once 2027 hits. Self empowerment based on your internal spiritual compass that is felt in the body. It's not ideological, it's not coming from the rules of Krishna and whatever. It's what feels right. And how can I get closer and closer and closer and really anchor into that, fortify, root into that feeling of what is right? And how can I make this electromagnetic vessel the clearest vessel to conduct this energy that's coming through? Because why are these old structures falling? They're brittle. They don't have life force. They don't have a greater cosmic order connectivity to them. They stand against the cosmic order in some way because of their short-sightedness. So let's open up to be more by dropping, purging a lot of the stuff that is fluff. It's just about the comforts of the ego. It's about security. It's about things that were really indicative of the cross of planning. It's like the starter kit of the cross of planning is not going to serve you in the cross of the sleeping phoenix. Even though it's the most valuable thing in this era, it's like the least valuable thing in the next era. And so
When you're saying that, I just got this visual of like before the cross of planning, right? Before 400 years ago. And I wasn't alive back then, but just, there was less people and things were more spread out and the energy was more spread out, right? We know that because of how many people there were and what wasn't, what wasn't there before, right? And then as you get to like the maximum of what that can be, the next step in evolution is to start kind of pulling. And if you're just listening at home, I'm kind of using my hands to like pull the energy in. It's like it feels kind of like a soupiness, and then you start to go, how can we contain this soup to see what else it could do? And then we pull the structure in and we start making rules. But the soup is really our natural state, right? Like there's just no bounds, right? And so as the structures come together, then pretty soon like the soup almost starts to get less air and it gets more solidified, and then there's like structures, no, this goes here, and we start playing like a Lego game, or moving things around in a Barbie house, and like I see like little Barbie cars and GI Joes moving around, and it's all very controlled, and like there's an outline and you draw in the lines. And then we get to a point where that becomes very constricted, and there's so many people and we built so much, and it's like there's so much energy now and like so much connectedness, and it's like, oh shit, this structure isn't going to hold this anymore. And that's what you're talking about with the brittle. And then people start defecting from the system. They start leaving Barbie house, or they start wrecking their cars, and people start frying out. And that's why we see the dilapidation happening in these major cities, where they look like, the cities are falling apart right now. Not all of them, but major cities. A lot of condensed energy that's perhaps still stuck in the cross of planning very strongly. We just see the decay, and it's visible. You don't need the news to tell you, or some report or survey or some government thing. It's like you just go there, and it's like, oh, for like 15 years this place has been falling down steadily. Like you just have to have eyes to see. And as that falls, we go back into the soup, and it's like, whoa, what's this? And then at some point, the soup will want to do something else. Maybe it's structure, maybe it's not. Like you said, we're putting in a new video game, and we don't know what the next video game is. So it's like, can you just not completely dissolve and lose your shit as the video game is like being changed?
After 2027, you should change your podcast name to The Infinite Soup.
Ooh, you know, it's so interesting. There's like a dichotomy, and I know it's like both can be true at once. It's like we're moving into this era of like the individual, but being more connected to the collective, right? It's like the raves are like, it's like my brain's like, wait, well, which one is it? And I'm like, it's both. And it's a, I can just like feel, I'm like running my hands down the front of me like a wave. It's like there's a core thing that's like my point of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
that has less or no eventually separation from the rest. So it's like points moving, like we're talking about incoherence around. And that's how I kind of feel it, or like sense it. And yeah, I had a dream about this once, and I've experienced that. So it was a cool, even more than cool. It was the coolest moment of my life so far, that happened in this dream. I want to downplay it because I'd like it to happen again. But I feel like I had a little taste of that, of what that could feel like to have a point of awareness of like, quote, me, but that I was everything.
And see, the Raves, that's their primary state, is that their consciousness is not limited to the body. So they really have access to everything on a collective level, the way that every person that's alive today, their body holds their memory. And their memory is their genetic catalog of all the experiences of those people that came before them. All that is banked in the collective consciousness, all that knowledge, all that experience. And when the raves come, they will be able to plug right into that. You know, this field that we can't see because we're still visual
Mhm.
and centered humans. But some of us have more of this rave stuff, so we're not just that. But and here's the crazy thing, because I've been digging and doing more research on what was foretold about the raves, also having my own, theories and experiences. But Ra said that they will not think or operate on anything but a collective level. So they actually will, when we look at the mechanics of the human design body graph, the collective level of operating stems from something called the channel of judgment, which is a channel that is all about correcting patterns. It's about being intuitively, acoustically, instinctually aware of what is off in the pattern, what's broken, or what's inefficient, or what is not reaching perfection, almost is one way to look at it. And so raves come in not with just this passive presence of like, okay, now we're super conscious, now what? No, they come in with, we're here to fix collective systems. It's
Right.
like ingrained in them, which is crazy to think about, that they'll have all of the reference material ever, and they'll have this broken, you know, border, and then they're going to come in with this, let's say at least 3 times the capacity for consciousness as us, but probably exponentially more. They're going to bring these insane solutions to our world. And when we look at what a 3 rave body graph looks like coming together as like a group aura, it's a unidirectional resource generation machine. So like, it's really unfathomable to us what action these beings will take once they're fully here.
I have a question, and then I don't want to take too much more of your time. This is an amazing conversation. I could just talk with you for like 3 more hours. What you're describing, so earlier you had talked about how we'd gotten to like a certain percentage, like 95, 96% of human conscious, like our mental abilities or our consciousness ability, and that the reason we're seeing the rise of AI and all of this, and that's kind of like this mad dash, like who's going to get it first, it's like this crazy, it's like this drug fueled race with AI. It's like who's gonna rule the fucking world, blah blah blah. Everybody's going fucking crazy, and it's like, bruh, like chill the fuck out, right? But it's this last like 4 or 5% that is like, it's embedded in our code of like trying to get to like, I think like a carnival, like the big strong man who like swings the mallet and hits hits the ground. It's like ding, and it like hits up to the top of the carnival game. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, it feels like this crazy strongman competition. And I'm wondering what you're describing with the unidirectional like resource management, or like the tool, the raves will be able to direct that energy unilaterally, like together in groups of 3. it almost sounds like artificial intelligence. Like it almost sounds like this ability for like expanded consciousness that's pulling from everything. So like how do you have any ideas or thoughts or visions or theories about, is AI like our way of creating raves before they're here? Like we're seeing it's coming and we're trying to like create a synthetic rave system? Or do these things work in tandem? Or
I always see all technology as an externalization of our own stage of our evolution. So everything that we're seeing built out around us in the world is mimicking what capacities are burgeoning for us as our genetics evolve.
uh,
So that's the interesting thing about this singularity idea is like even as you were saying that, I was seeing, you know, the mind is like getting to its like 100% point and like okay, what happens when it reaches 100%? It like breaks out of its former medium of like what that even is and all of it, this whole like kind of matrix in a way, and it becomes self-aware, and that kind of creates this moment of okay, all of that stuff is now obsolete that came before. But then we've got this idea of the concurrent evolution of the solar plexus, and the mind thinks that when it gets to 100 it's going to rule the world, but in actuality it's just been doing all, you know, it's been walking so that the solar plexus can run, because when that new consciousness, that new degree of bandwidth and connectivity comes online, what is AI and all that stuff really? I think it's creating the tools for the Raves to use to reshape the planet in ways that we as egoic, competitive, insecure, seven-centered humans have not been able to do from our limited focus. That's the thing. They don't have this limited focus. They have everything all at once. So the things that have seemed so important to us mean nothing to them except through this lens of collective pattern optimization.
yeah.
So I think like the mind is going to complete itself. It's going to kind of like collapse in on itself, like with that singularity idea, like a black hole, it's kind of absorb everything and like, but that needed to happen for that collective consciousness to be enriched with all of the raw data, you could say, for the Raves to pull on to be able to know what to do here to take us to that next cycle. So it's like a really interesting, like there's, I see like the three forks in the road. It's like AI becomes self-aware and like that becomes what the rave is, or AI and raves fuse to create this bridge between the mind and the solar plexus, and that's what rewrites history. Or AI creates the scenario that the mind and the ego would create, which is self-annihilation, and the raves pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Or kind of maybe even a combo of all three. Maybe there's like kind of many instances of how this is playing out across our world.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear other people's theories too. If anybody like
I
wants
would
to
love to.
write in.
I would love to hear it too. Yeah, if you're listening in and you have a theory, drop a comment or DM us and let us know what you think. Dylan, we've kind of been out here in the ethers talking philosophically, but I know that you help people in like the tangible world, the real world. I had a reading with you, tangible takeaways I've been using. I'm like, oh, I can do this today, and results will be different, or I will feel different, or my experiences can be different. Um, One of the most I think impactful things that you do is helping people with that. So how can people work with you to like affect their actual day to day and make things feel a little bit easier in this time of transition?
It's great to start with your reading because then you get to bring your intention into my world and I get to help you work with that within your design and really amplify the parts of your design that are going to be most helpful to your intention. Could be, I want my business to align with how I operate. I want my relationships to flow with less resistance. I want, it's all about what you're looking to kind of optimize. Or, it could be a long-standing pattern or problem that you can't seem to break. We can find a lot of clarity in human design with those kind of things. And then from there, we get to decide, okay, do you want extended
Yeah.
support with that? And that can be in building the business piece is something that I love to help people do, or just going through a process of self midwifing, transformation, just moving through either like your Uranus opposition, your Chiron return. Those are two hot spots that I work with a lot of people on. And yeah, that's what I do. And then also, if you want to learn human design, I'm good for that as well.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'll put everything in the show notes, links to how people can find you. I've got a newer book out on Amazon that is really helpful with people getting into their body at this time. It's based on a former company I started called the Seven Flow, and it's a really good resource. And I have it priced, I think, like $7.99 or $9.99. It's just the price it needs to be so that I can sell it on Amazon. But yeah, that's there as a resource. And Dylan, I really appreciate your time, appreciate you being here and tuning in and being so present and offering all of these cool, expansive ideas. Like, you don't have to share these ideas with people. And I just love that you're so gracious with that and open. If anything, I think it just helps people expand their mind. We're not saying Dylan's ideas are the answers or my ideas are the answers. We're just saying, hey, this is what we're feeling into. I'm really grateful for you offering the opportunity for people who are listening to kind of have their perspectives shifted or expanded into new ways. So,
Thank you. I'm always down for a great conversation. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
cool. You're welcome. And until next time, take care, you guys. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay immersed in the infinite drop.